All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. This is week 2, module 2, the second day of class. So before we get started, I just want to kind of recap where we are. So last week was week 1. On week 1, we had intro session. So if you were here with me on the intro session, you're covered. If you were not here live on the intro session, then you need to watch the video and answer the questions, which are on Canvas under modules. Module 1. So last week, Module 1 had the beginning of the semester survey. So that was you go on Canvas, Module 1, it links to a Google form that asks like 10 questions regarding like Pilates principles and breath, kind of an assessment of what you know about Pilates at this point in time. Then we had our release of liability that needed to be signed. And if that hasn't been signed yet, please make sure you sign that and upload it to Canvas. And then this week is week 2. So we had a class on Monday. If you were here, it was the fitness assessment where we did some balance and, closed our eyes, stood on one foot. That information that you recorded, then we enter into Canvas under fitness assessment. So that was this week. You had a fitness assessment. Then we have today's class. And then you have a reading assignment called The Benefits of Pilates. This is all on Module 2. And you have a video submission, which is moving from IMPRINT to neutral, rolling your spine IMPRINT to neutral. 2 short videos, about 4 minutes each, YouTube videos of someone showing you movements through the spine. We're going to do that today in class. So if you haven't done that assignment yet, this class will prepare you for that assignment. I want you to watch the videos as well, because this is very, very subtle movements that are the kind of the core of Pilates. And if you don't get this now, you really can't build on successfully or safely. So essentially today's going to be our first class where we're actually doing Pilates. So I'm excited about that. So Pilates essentially is exercises invented by Joseph Pilates, who was a gentleman who had a kind of diverse background in boxing, martial arts, dance, mind body movement, yoga, and meditation. So Joseph Pilates came up with 37 exercises to do on the mat that were about building up your core, building up core strength so that you can hold yourself up in good posture by using your core. So really the focus in Pilates is essentially doing what you need to do to build the musculature so you can have good posture. Most of us, just because we live life the way we do, our posture kind of looks like this, is we're kind of just, I'm going to exaggerate this, but we're just kind of like rounded, and our shoulders are rounded because we just are, on computers a lot. Gravity pulls us down. So Pilates is working on the muscles to reverse this. So that would be strengthening your core muscles so you could sit up nice and tall, and stretching the muscles at your chest, because these are short and tight. These muscles are short and tight from having shoulders rounded. So stretching these muscles and then building up your upper back muscles so that you can get to a place where you can be sitting up straight and it feels comfortable to sit up straight. Because a lot of us can go like, all right, I'm going to sit up straight. And then like after like 45 seconds, it hurts. It just doesn't feel right. So Pilates is building all the muscle strength and the musculature so that you can hold yourself up nice and high, and it feels good to do that. So a lot of the terms that you're going to be hearing, it's about lengthening. We're working a lot with the spine, lengthening the spine, pulling in the abdominal muscles, and then initiating all move kind of our center. So in Pilates, like a lot of in Western society, we call it the core. And in Pilates, he used the term powerhouse, which is like you work from your powerhouse. And the powerhouse in Pilates is your inner thigh muscles, your glutes, your abdominal muscles in the front, your back muscles, your lats, the muscles around your shoulders. So kind of like anything from the armpit to your pelvis is your powerhouse, and learning how to initiate all movement from your powerhouse. So it takes time. It's very precise. And so the first few classes that we do together, at the end of the class, you're going to be like, what did we just do? Like we didn't even work out. And that is just the nature of this. It's the first few classes is a lot of detail and a lot of information, and I will keep reiterating. So don't worry too much. I'm going to use a lot of terms over and over until they become just part of your vocabulary. The Pilates is based on these foundations, and one of them is precision of movement. So typical Pilates classes, we'll do an exercise and we'll do it like once we get moving, like maybe week 6 or 7, we'll do an exercise and we'll do 3, like we don't do quantity, we do quality. So because it's about controlling each movement and doing it with complete precision. Find a comfortable spot to sit. So it could be on a chair or it could be on your mat. But what has to happen is that your spine is lifted. So a lot of us, if we're real tight in the hamstrings, sitting on the ground in cross-legged or even with legs out, is we can't do it. It ends up looking like this because we're tight. And in Pilates, your spine is the most important thing. Like, who cares about the legs? Who cares about the arms? If you don't have a good spine, you can't have your health. So the spine is where you want to find a spot. Sometimes if you're on a chair with your legs hanging down, that's going to be easier for you to be able to sit up nice and straight. Let's get settled into thinking about rooting down through your sitting bones. Those are like the bones that of your pelvis, at the base of your pelvis, and then lifting tall through your spine. So almost pulling your abs in and then trying to grow a little bit taller than you thought you could get. So our spine is, you guys don't need to know like each vertebrae and the names of them, but you just have to know the basics. So we have our neck. That's called your cervical spine. And the neck generally does flexion. So everyone drop your chin to your chest. You're flexing your cervical spine. You're doing flexion at the neck. And then look up straight ahead. We're extending. And then look up to the sky. And now we're doing cervical extension. And then bring your chin down and back to center. Perfect. All right, look to your right. We're rotating at the cervical spine. And then bring it back to center. And look to your left. And bring it back to center. All right, so your cervical spine does flexion, it does extension, it does rotation, and it does lateral flexion. Take your right ear to shoulder and bring it up, and left ear to shoulder and bring it up. So your cervical spine does those 4 motions: flexion, extension, rotation, and lateral flexion, or sometimes they call that side bending, bending to the side. Okay, so that's cervical, that's our neck. Then the next portion of our spine is called our thoracic spine. So for us, let's just think about that as upper back. I will use the terms like, flex your neck, round your upper back, extend the upper back, but sometimes I use the term cervical or thoracic, so I want you to know that. So the thoracic spine is, let's just say it's kind of like from waistline to shoulders, all right? And thoracic spine does flexion, so let's kind of round chin to chest and even go a little bit further, rounding the upper back. Now pull your belly in and then lift tall, and now roll the shoulders back and lift your breastbone up towards the sky. And we're doing thoracic extension, and with our neck up, we're also doing cervical extension. And then come back to center. So the thoracic spine does flexion, it does extension. What's harder for it to do is rotation. So if we all just naturally just twist over to your right and then come back to center and twist over to your left and come back to center. All right, so most of that twisting came from the low back. So now let's imagine like from belly button and up, we're kind of like just got cemented, like I dropped you into cement and the cement froze, and now you're gonna try to twist, but from belly button below, nothing moves, nothing moves. And it's a little bit harder to get that twisting action into the thoracic spine, and then bring it back to center, and then from belly button up, twist to your left, and bring it back to center. So it's pretty natural for the thoracic and the lumbar to kind of move together. In Pilates, we start to sequentially separate each part of the spine, the cervical from the thoracic, from the lumbar, the low back, and we try to start mobilizing the sections of the spine separate from each other. So essentially, we are creating health in the spine because each twist and each bend in the spine, essentially, it's like a sponge. So if you have a sponge and it's full of dirty water and you twist it out, you get rid of the dirty toxins and stuff in our bloodstream, and you release the sponge, and now it's empty and it can absorb fresh blood. So mobilizing the spine and moving sections of the spine brings health to the spine. So it's very healthy to do that, but in our everyday life, we don't do a lot of that. We might do flexion, a lot of flexion. We don't do too much extension. We don't do too much twisting. We definitely don't do too much lateral work. But in Pilates, that's everything we do. We're really focusing on those 4 movements. So from the thoracic spine, kind of our upper, I call that upper back area, let's lift the left arm and just lift the left rib cage to the sky and reach over to the right. We're doing a little bit of side bending here over to the right, and then pull the belly in and come back up to center and lift the right rib cage up. Think of going up before we go over to the left, and pull the belly in and come right back to center. Okay, so that is thoracic spine. Cervical is the neck, thoracic is the upper back. Then we have our lumbar, low back. And the low back does flexion and extension. So I'm going to stand up to the side, and it's easier to see this. So low back, let's see, flexion at my low back would look like this, kind of rounding here on my lumbar, and extension would be like my butt goes out, and now I have a little bit more of this curve at my low back. So flexion and extension, flexion and extension. We can do a little bit of hip hikes, so that would be lateral flexion, but we can't really twist just the lumbar. So the lumbar kind of does mostly flexion and extension, little bit of twisting. And if you feel overwhelmed with information, don't worry about it. This is Pilates, and this will just all kind of like seep into your brain and into your body, and it will all feel, connected. You'll know all this information. Okay, so, and then the last part of our spine is our tailbone. So the tailbone is, lumbar is kind of here, tailbone is even a little bit lower. And we talk about tailbone a lot in Pilates because we'll say something like, tuck your tailbone. So say this is my tailbone right there. We tuck the tailbone, we're going like that, and then untuck it. I gotta get my hand in the right position. Tuck and untuck, tuck and untuck. So essentially what I'm saying is flexion and extension. So the tailbone, placement of where the tailbone does come into play in a Pilates class. All right, so that's your spine from head down to the base to your pelvic floor. So these terms I'm going to start throwing out, and these are terms that are kind of terms of the industry that you'll hear throughout the semester. Pelvic floor is just the base of your pelvis, the floor of your pelvis. And there's a group of muscles, think like of a net of muscles at the pelvic floor. Whether you're female or male, you have a pelvic floor. And the pelvic floor muscles are included in the powerhouse. So pelvic floor muscles, one way to think about it is if you're trying to stop yourself from going pee and you tighten, you're involving some of the pelvic floor muscles, but they also go towards the back, towards the anus. And so like if you're, you have to fart and you're trying not to, and you kind of squeeze your butt, it's both that, stopping the flow of urine and stopping passing of gas together, and that's the pelvic floor muscles. We won't get too much into that, like maybe at the end of the semester I might also say pull up at your pelvic floor, and that's just engage those muscles. But it's kind of too hard to learn that at the beginning, but it is part of your powerhouse, is those muscles down at the pelvic floor. And then we have our pelvis. So the pelvis is 2 bones that attach to the spine. So you have the 2 pelvic bones the spine and the tailbone are attached. The tailbone in particular is attached into the pelvis. And really what you need to know, the kind of the two bony landmarks that you would need to know is you have your hip points. So if we all just like reach down and poke in, you have these bones right at the kind of top that we feel. These are the bones that you feel, those prominent poking out areas. I'll just refer to those as your hip bones or your hip points. And then right what we sit on, right at the base of our pelvis is these two little like bony little things, and it's called the ischial tuberosities. You don't, well, maybe you might need to know that term. They're just called sitting bones. Those are the bones you sit upon. So, you know, you're not far back. Like right now, I'm not on my sitting bones. I'm a little bit more on behind my sitting bones. And then if I move my buns back and I get right up on top, I'm right on those ischial tuberosities. So those are kind of the parts of the spine and the pelvis that are important. So what we're going to do is we're going to just start sitting on our sitting bones. And remember, I want the spine lengthened. So whatever leg position for you is good, do that. At this point, you probably could be on a chair. You don't have to be on your mat yet. And then I'm just going to show you that if you have tight hamstrings, you might want to get a yoga block, and then you could sit on a yoga block, and that helps get you up nice and tall, or even sit this way with the legs crossed. That's always an option, and that helps if your hamstrings are tight. It helps you to be able to lift up. All right, and now while we're sitting, we are going to learn something that's super important in Pilates, and it's called the scoop. It's referred to as the scoop, and it's what we do with our tummy muscles. So let's just start with our belly button, and we're going to suck our belly button in. Suck it in, almost like you're trying to suck the belly button into the spine. So really suck deep. Suck, 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 deeper than you thought you could suck it in, and then release it. Okay, take an inhale. And then exhale, suck belly button to spine. Suck it in deeper than you thought. Keep sucking it in. When you thought you sucked in as deep as you can, go deeper and release it. All right. So that's just, that we'll refer to that as sucking your, sometimes you'll hear navel to spine, navels, belly button, navel to spine. And that's the sucking in right here at the center. Now here we have right around our side tummy, I call these our side tummy muscles. This is a different band of musculature called your transverse abdominals. And these, I want you to think about, actually let's start it this way. Get your fingers, your pointer fingers, and then dig it into your side tummy muscles, like really push in there. And then we're gonna do like a pretend laugh. Like ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. All right, so you probably felt those muscles engage. So now do a pretend cough. Okay, so you again feel those muscles engage. That's your transverse abdominis. Okay, now what I want you to do is try to suck those muscles in. So that feeling you got, or tighten those muscles. That same feeling you got with your ha-ha or your coughing, tighten those muscles. All right, and release it. And then tighten, and if you're not sure, do another cough, a pretend cough. I can't hear you. No one can hear you. So just to make sure you feel them engage, and then you keep them tight. All right, so that's your side tummy muscles. So tighten up the side tummy muscles and pull your belly button to spine. Suck it in, suck, 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 even deeper, and then release it. All right, so that's kind of just part of the scooping. Now we're going to think about our waistline, that almost like when we're sucking in the side tummy muscles, we're trying to make the waistline smaller. So take an inhale and then exhale, suck belly button to spine, scoop out the side tummy muscles and hug your side, your waistline in, almost like you're trying to, like you have a pair of pants and they're just like a size too small and you got to suck in to button them. All right, so that here is kind of called our scoop. When I say scoop out the abs, it's we're trying to take a big scoop out of our abdominal wall. All right, and kind of at ease, relax for a second. Okay, so now, really important to the scoop is your breath. In Pilates, breath is super important, and there's a very specific breathing pattern. And what we do in Pilates, it's called a forceful exhalation. So it sounds like this. And you don't need to feel shy about doing it because you're all by yourself. So when I teach a class, you know, the first 3 or 4 weeks of the semester, students like just don't want to do it. But it's critical to Pilates, and I'm going to tell you why. Because your diaphragm is the muscle that controls breathing. It's kind of this dome shape. And when you inhale, the diaphragm goes down, and that gives you space in your lungs for air to go in. And then when you exhale, the diaphragm raises up. Okay, so that's what's happening right now. We don't even think about it. It just happens. In Pilates, though, after we do our inhale and the diaphragm goes down, we go, we force it up forcefully so that we can scoop out the abs. So we inhale, the diaphragm goes down, and then exhale, scoop out the abs. It's a forceful pulling, scooping, forcing the diaphragm up. So we're going to just try that a few times. And as we, nice big deep inhale, and exhale, scoop. Inhale, exhale, scoop. Inhale, exhale, scoop. So it's the side tummy muscles, it's the waistline. Do that 5 more times. And one more. All right, we're gonna relax it. Okay, so we just learned a few things. We learned flexion, extension of the different parts of the spine, and we learned about the Pilates exhalation and the scoop of the abs. So we're gonna apply some of that stuff by going to hands and knees. So you'll need to be on your mats here. All right, and you're at hands and knees. And maybe you adjust your phone so I can see you too. I would love that. All right. All right, from here, we are going to tuck our tailbone, drop the head, and pull the belly up. So I just flexed my spine. Flexion of the spine, rounding of the spine. All right, pull the belly in, suck it in, scoop it out. All right, now keep the belly pulled in and slowly take your spine out of flexion. Slowly start to go back to a flat back, and then lift your tailbone up and lift your breastbone and your chin up. And now we're in extension. From tailbone to head, we're in extension. And now drop the tailbone, pull the belly up, drop the head. We're in flexion. This is called cat stretch, C-A-T, cat, like meow, cat. And then reverse it and go into extension. Hold that extension, and this is called cow. And you can't really see because I have a black thing right behind me, but you're extending and almost think about like the udders of a cow are hanging low. And then round the spine, flexion, belly pulls in. And keep the tummy pulled in and go to extension. Okay, let's add breath to this. Inhale. And then exhale, scoop out the abs, drop the head, flex the spine. Inhale, keep the belly pulled in. As you extend the spine, lift the chin up, tailbone in. Exhale, flex. Inhale, extend. Exhale, flex. Pull the belly in. And inhale, extend. So this is called cat and cow. We're doing flexion and extension of the entire spine. Pulling the belly in on that flexion, keeping the belly pulled in as you go into extension. And now let's just relax into a position. And a lot of times what I'm going to do is I'm going to exaggerate movement. So I'm just going to relax, okay? And this relaxed position is, usually we relax into extension. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to pull our rib cage up so that we go into a flat back. So we're not rounding, we're not dropping, we're sucking the ribs up towards the sky, spreading the shoulder blades out, and that brings us into a flat back position. This is more called neutral spine, meaning it's your spine in its lengthened position. All right, now let go of your abs, let go of your ribs, and just drop. All right, pull the ribs up, pull the belly up, draw the shoulders down. We're in a flat back. Go even further, go into flexion. From flexion, return to flat back. From flat back, go into extension. From extension, pull the ribs up, lengthen the tailbone. Let's go to flat. From flat, let's go to rounded. And return to neutral. So remember, neutral is not just hang out. It's an active position where my belly is pulled up, my rib cage is sucked in. All right, so let's talk about the ribs in this position here. Think about your ribs, the front ribs. You have your front rib cage and you have your back ribs. So let the front ribs just drop towards the ground. And then now pull the front ribs up towards the sky. Good. Let them drop. Suck them in. So suck your front ribs up towards the back ribs. Let them drop. Suck your front ribs up towards the back ribs. And one more time, let them drop. Suck your front ribs up towards the back ribs. All right. And then let's come back to seated position, whatever is comfortable for you. All right. So we just did cat and cow on hands and knees. And we talked a little bit about the ribs. So I'm going to try to exaggerate this. So naturally what happens when you lift your arms up, I'm going to exaggerate. When your arms go up, your back extends. All right, it just happens structurally. That's how your body works. And so you have to correct that by softening the front ribs in towards the back ribs. So let's all try that. Lift your arms up and almost think of your breastbone lifting towards the sky. And then check in with your low back. What happened at your low back? Kind of extend it. And how do we correct that? We correct it by pulling the front ribs in towards the back ribs. And that gets us into a flat back position, and let the arms release. All right, so root down through your sitting bones and then lift up tall, 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 tall through the spine. Lift up tall. A lot of times when we think we're lifting up tall, what happens is we lift like this and we go into extension, and really what we want to do is lift from the back of the skull and pull the ribs in. So the lifting is coming from your musculature and not just by popping your ribs out. So soften the front ribs in. Think of the kind of the base of your occipital lobe, the back of your head, the top of the neck, lifting towards the sky, belly pulling in. And that is kind of where we're going to stay nice and lifted through the spine whenever we're doing Pilates. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to come onto our back and do everything we just learned, which is flexion and extension and even twisting. So you're going to be on your back. Okay. Knees are bent. And now we're going to start to get into specifics. You're going to have your knees hip bone distance apart. So hip bones, again, those are those pointy, the hip points. Okay, so put your fingers on your hip points and then look at what is that distance. It's not very far. A lot of times when I say hip bone distance apart, people are thinking like kind of the outer portion of like the fleshy part of their hips, but I want you to be the actual pelvis bone distant apart on those hip points. Okay, this is going to get tricky, so bear with me. We're going to pretend that there is a clock, and the clock is right up above your head. Pull the marble up to 12 o'clock. So essentially what I'm doing, I'm on my back, but I'm doing this and this and this and this. Exactly what we just did, cat and cow, only it's now on our back. Flexion and extension. Flexion and extension. Flexion and extension. All right, roll your hip points up towards your low ribs. Now, put your fingers at your hip points and your ribs and create as little bit of space as you can between those 2 points. And now you're going to roll your hip points away from the rib cage and lengthen that space. And now roll the hip points up towards the ribs. So we're flexing the low back. And then roll the hip points away from the ribs. Roll up to the ribs. As we roll up to the ribs, you're imprinting your low back into the mat. So your low back is now really going deep into the mat. And then as you roll away, hip points away from the ribs, all the way down, you're going into extension. So roll up into imprint. So imprint is that 12 o'clock position if we had that clock on our chest. And then we roll down to the 6 o'clock position. And up to 12, imprint, and down to 6. One more time, up to 12, and down to 6. Okay, put your hands behind your head. And what we're going to do here now is we're just going to curl up. So when you curl up, something happens. You go into imprint naturally. It just happens. All right. So now with our eyes, we're going to actually look at our hip points, and we're going to do that. We're going to roll up and down. So now you get to watch your pelvis. Roll up to imprint and keep the belly pulled in. Go down to tailbone down. Up to imprint and down to neutral. So keep doing that. As you roll up, pull the belly in, scoop out the abs. Keep the belly pulled in as you roll down. So when you roll down, it should feel like there's muscles. They're nice and strong, but now they're lengthening. You're not just letting go. Roll up, inhale, and exhale down. Inhale up, and exhale down. Inhale, roll up to imprint. Let's stay at imprint. And now at imprint, let's do a few crunches here. And now with Pilates, with every movement, we use breath. So with each crunch, we are going to scoop out the abs and do a Pilates exhalation. So it's for 5 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 1, and we rest it. So you should have felt your abs working a little bit there. Okay, so let's take the hands behind the head again and curl up. This is called a chest curl. We're curling our chin towards our chest. Roll the marble up to 12 o'clock, our hip points up towards the ribs. This is our imprint. Roll the marble down to 6 o'clock. We're in neutral spine, and this is gonna be super tricky. So watch your pelvis. Do not let it move. It's gonna wanna roll back up to 12 o'clock. Don't let it, and let's do some crunches here. Don't let your pelvis roll up though. And exhale, scoop. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we rest it. All right, so all that we did was we went into imprint. We did some crunches in imprint. Imprint is when your abdominal muscles are shortening, concentric contraction. They're short and we're working them. And then we rolled down to neutral spine and we did some crunches. And now what we're doing is eccentric movements. We've lengthened the muscles and then we're working them under tension. And in Pilates, a lot of what we do is lengthening the muscles and working it under tension. Take the hands behind the head. Curl up. Now, naturally, as you curled up, you went into imprint. It just happens. Our spine does stuff we're not even aware of. Pilates will make us aware of it. But just make sure you're in imprint. Go even deeper. Take for you guys, let's see, the hand that's furthest away from me and open it out to the side. For me, it's my left hand. And I'm just going to crunch over to my left side. So I'm going to take my right armpit towards my left hip. And I'm going to add my Pilates breath. And I'm going to add my scoop. I'm staying in imprint. And 2 and 1. Come back to center. Switch sides. Take the right hand out. Stay in imprint. And we're going to cross the left armpit towards the right hip, adding breath and scoop. And rest it down. Okay. Let's have the hands by the side, or even out to the side is fine. I call this a T when they're out and open at the sides. And we're going to pull our legs up, our knees up towards halfway between the floor and our chest. And this is called tabletop. So the idea is this right here is the top of a table. You could like place a cup of coffee and it would just hang out there. All right. So in tabletop, just by lifting our legs up, our back kind of goes into imprint, but we could go further. So think about, could you roll your hip points up towards your ribs, kind of really make that imprint, the low back, go a little bit deeper into the mat? Okay, keeping imprint, let's take our left foot down towards the mat. Don't bring it all the way down, just touch the toe. Keep your imprint though, keep the belly pulled in and pull the knee back in. Make sure you're in imprint, which means you gotta work. If I wasn't working, my body just wants to go like this. My low back kind of wants to lift up and my abs disengage, but we're trying to stay with the abs engaged. And now lower the right foot, tap the toe to the ground and bring it up. Take the hands behind your head, curl up. This is easy. We automatically are in imprint. We don't even have to think about it. This is imprint. And from imprint, stay in imprint, and we're going to shoot the legs out long and pull the belly in deeper, and then bring the legs back in. Shoot them out, belly pulls in, because we want to always go deeper in imprint. Always go deeper in imprint as the legs shoot out and up, belly pulls in, and one more. Exhale, shoot up. Inhale, bring it in, and rest it down. All right, so I have taught you guys a lot of stuff today. We are going to finish with one more exercise that's going to be kind of for the abdominals. Then we're going to stretch out the abs, and then we'll wrap things up for today. So we're going to do something called crisscross intensive. So let's pull the right knee in towards the chest. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a warning. Pilates is very detailed and very precise and very specific. So I want you to follow every single cue closely. Curl yourself up towards your knee. Extend your left leg. Hug your foot, right foot into the left leg. Hug your outer hips in, hug your inner thighs together. Curl up a little deeper. Take your hands, bring them to the outside of the right leg, curl deeper, and now roll over to the right. Roll to your right, roll to your right. Belly pulls in, foot is squeezing into the leg, belly is sucking in deeper. Take the hands behind the head. Return to center. Curl deeper and slowly drag the left knee in to meet the right knee. Rest your head, rest your foot, rest your other foot. Other side, left knee in. Curl up, nose towards knee. Lengthen the right leg. Hug the foot into the knee, inner thighs hug in, outer hips hug in. Curl a little deeper. Wrap the hands on the outside of the left leg. Curl deeper, roll to your left, suck the belly in, hands behind the head, center it, curl a little bit deeper, slide the right knee in, rest the head, rest the right foot, rest the left foot. That's two. We're going to do two more, and then we're going to go into crisscross, which what some of you might recognize as bicycle. It's called bicycle in other formats. But what we're doing is we're ripping out that whole bicycle thing. So this is what you might see in a gym. These little small movements. In Pilates, it's much longer and sharper and deeper. So this intensive is kind of getting you to feel all the muscles that are supposed to be working when we do our bicycle. So two more intense ones, and then we'll go into crisscross. All right, pull the right knee in. Curl. Lengthen. Hug everything towards midline. Foot into the knee, inner thighs hugging together, outer hips hugging in. So glutes hugging together. Think it's your buns. You're trying to squeeze your buns in towards the inner gluteal line. Wrap, pull, roll. Hands behind the head. Are your abs pulled in? Are you hugging and squeezing? Come to center, curl deeper, slide the left knee in. Rest the head, rest the left foot, rest the right foot. Last one, left knee in. Curl, lengthen. Hug, squeeze, scoop out the abs. Roll your shoulders back. Wrap, pull, roll to the left. Keep squeezing and hugging to midline. Keep the belly sucking in. Hands behind the head. And switch sides. And switch. And switch. Inhale, inhale, exhale, exhale. Keep going. Inhale, inhale. What happened to those long legs? This is Pilates. This is not the gym where you're going to do these little bicycles. I want to see longer legs, much longer. Andrew, you get those legs out long and long and longer than you thought they could go. Wait, that's it. That's beautiful. The work in Pilates is in the length. It's in the length. It's in the eccentric muscle contractions. 2, 1, and stretch it. All right, big stretch. Legs go long, arms go long. Let's stretch it out. Nice big stretch. Oops. All right, and then just check in with your ribs. When our arms go back behind our head, the ribs pop up towards the sky, towards the ceiling, and that's okay. Enjoy it for a moment. They're trying to stretch, but notice it. Start noticing what's happening with the ribs. Your rib cage moves when your arms move. All right. Bring your heels in a little bit closer to the buns. Bring your hands by your side. Take your hands to karate chop, arms to karate chop. So like you're karate chopping the pinkies towards the mat. And you're gonna roll your shoulders back. So we're widening across our collarbones. And we're gonna press our upper arms down into the mat and lift the buns up off the mat. So this is called a couple different things. In Pilates, they call this a pelvic tilt. In yoga, they call it a bridge. I am doing this to stretch my front body, not to work the buns. So let's relax our buns, walk the shoulder blades towards each other, push your upper arms down into the mat as you lift your breastbone up towards the chin to get a little thoracic extension, upper back extension. Relax the buns again. They want to keep tightening up, but we want to treat this as a stretch across our front, our hip flexors, our thighs, our hip flexors, and our front body. All right, walk the shoulder blades apart, roll down the spine, 1 vertebra at a time, pull the knees into the chest, and we're going to circle our knees. Circle, circle, circle. This is called knee stirs. And stir them in the other direction. All right, drop your feet down to the mat. We're gonna lift our buns up and move your buns to the left. Pull the belly in and drop your knees over to the right. Tee the arms. It's called an easy twist. So by moving our hips over first before we dropped our knees, we're kind of making the twist slightly easier on our low back. And we're just going to breathe into the low back. Okay, now this is important, is we're kind of at the end of class, and the last thing we want to do at the end of class is kind of fire up the back muscles. So you're going to take your right hand, you're going to put it underneath your knees, and you're going to use the strength from your arm to push the knees to center as you pull your belly in and straighten your spine along the mat. And now we're going to go to the other side. Lift the buns up, move them to the right, drop your knees to the left for an easy twist. Breathe into the low back. Okay, pull the belly in, take your left hand underneath the knees, scoop out the right abs and use the strength from your arm and the scoop of the abs to bring your knees to center, straightening out your spine. Pull your knees into your chest, grab behind the legs, and let's start doing a little rocking. Inhale, rock back, exhale up, inhale back, exhale up until you rock up to sitting. All right, coming all the way up to sitting.